Good morning and welcome to a special meeting of the Assiniboia Community Committee for this Tuesday, June 30th of 2026. My name is Councillor Evan Duncan. I'll be chairing today's meeting. I'm joined by my council colleagues, Councillor Dobson and Councillor Lukes. I'm also joined by our senior committee clerk, Ms. Leah Cowan, and members of the public service. Before we get started here, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional home of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people, and the national home of the Red River Métis, and that our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Could I have a motion to allow myself to participate remotely today? Moved by Councillor Lukes. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. We have one item on our agenda today. That is the plan approval for Falcon Ridge.
I think we have a delegation that's coming that is signing in. I know my computer was a blackout this morning. I can't even use it, but
so councillors, I think Robin Lee is going to join the meeting from Precon Builders, but if you could just, because Robin didn't register for the meeting, we'll just need a motion to suspend the rules to have a delegation that
yeah, I'll have a motion to suspend the rules to allow a delegation.
All right, Councillor Lukes moves to have this suspension of the rules to hear from the delegation. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, and that is carried.
Okay. All right. And we hear from the delegation before the plan, before the clerks, right? For the planners?
The delegation isn't here quite yet, so if you'd like to hear a brief overview.
Sure.
Yeah, let's get through the overview and then we can hear from the delegation. Sure. Please, go ahead.
Okay.
So the subject property is located on Falcon Ridge Street in the Linden Ridge neighborhood of the Waverly West Ward. The site is located within the recent community policy area under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy. The property is zoned RMFL, residential multifamily, and is approximately 134,156 square area in feet. The property is located on the north side of Falcon Ridge Drive and the west side of Linden Ridge Drive. There is one transit route within 400 meters of the site. The stop is located immediately adjacent. The route is the Route 650, which runs approximately every 30 minutes from 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday to Friday. This is a community route, which is the least frequent type of route. The applicant is proposing a 134-unit multifamily building. Units come in 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and 1-bedroom, 1-bath forms. 21 of the units are accessible universal design suites. These are available in 1-bedroom, 1-bath, studio, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and 2-bedroom, 2-bath forms. The building is 69 feet and has 6 stories. The building includes studio, single, and 2-bedroom units. And then there is a bunch of landscaping with a total of 40 trees and 261 shrubs, which exceeds the requirements of 35 trees and 180 shrubs. The proposed building has balconies, a dog run, and a large landscaped area. There are 173 parking stalls and 1 car share. 10 parking stalls are accessible, which exceeds the requirement of 6. And there are 116 bicycle stalls with a mix of indoor and outdoor stalls. The land is currently vacant land, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, any questions for public service at this point in time?
Yeah, I have a couple. If I could start. Do you want to just elaborate on accessible universal design, what that would entail? Or, I mean, I guess I can ask the developer, but...
Yeah, so the developer would be able to speak more specifically to it. But for planning terminology, accessible typically means things like, wider doorways, lower counters, wheelchair accessible, different, for different mobility accessibilities. You could have, different bathroom orientations. Again, there are a lot of ways that it can be done, specific counters as well, based on how they open and close. And I don't know the specifics of how it's done for this site, but those are common ways in which it is accomplished.
Okay. And I didn't see it in the report, and maybe and if you don't, then I can ask the developer, how many studios, single bedroom, 2-bedroom units there are. Do we know?
For the accessible units, let me double check here. Are you asking specifically for the accessible units?
No, well, I think it said 21 of the units, so no, I'm not, it says they're available in 1, 2, and 3, but I'm just saying in general, not the
Okay,
accessible.
so looking at the plans here, we have, it looks like 4 studio apartments, 51 bedroom, 55 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 64 2 bedroom, 2 bath. That's 69 2 bedroom, 2 bath, and 6 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
Got it, okay. Okay, that's good. I have more questions. Do you have any questions, Councillor Dobson or Councillor
good.
Duncan? Can I
Please
continue?
go ahead.
Questions?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yep.
So, now I see here that they're going over and above and exceeding their landscaping requirements. And when I look at their submitted plans, I do see a landscape preliminary drawing, okay? So I'm just wondering, there's a lot of shrubs in there. It's hard for me to understand that landscaping to the right. Is that hills or flat, or it looks like there's a lot of trees and shrubs there, which looks great.
So you're talking about kind of on the front of the
east side.
property, yeah. And so so again, the applicant will be best to speak to that,
Right.
but looking at it, when it says, I believe that there are some plans for some hills in there.
Okay, I'll ask the developer then, what the deal is there. Do you think you could tell me what is the distance between the city sidewalk and the setback, like, of the building itself? And I guess I know you've got a setback, but sometimes these things aren't clear when
Talking on the south.
on the south border, yes.
Let's see if I can find a measurement here.
There's a city sidewalk and then
32 feet. Thank you.
32 feet, and that is to the building itself?
Yeah, that is from the sidewalk to the building itself.
From the sidewalk to the building is 32 feet. Okay. All right. And then I'll ask the developer what the skin or the outside of the building, what it is. Now, let's just talk about this car share. So this is very good that there's a car share in there. I think that's actually super good. I have a feeling because he's got these accessible units in there, it's catering more to an older crowd, but 55 plus maybe. And so the car share, they just said a car share, it's up to them what kind of car share or the model they use, I guess. How many spots does a car share in your latest version of what?
I will double check that exactly. Because I don't have full confidence in the number I have in my head offhand.
And then I also see that they've got, they're exceeding the number of accessibility stalls. So that's interesting. Again, that to me, I see as a positive sign that they're designing it to support the accessible and universal design component. Okay, balconies.
So a car share.
This file.
Yeah, for this file, this is the. Found where it counts in a different section.
I believe it's to a maximum of 12 that we look at offsetting. That I think in this case, like it's kind of a range. It depends on the site, and in this case, it would be considered lower. Like one car share vehicle would be probably equivalent to 8 or so.
Okay, well, you must have it. I don't need it right now, but if you could send it to me,
Yeah,
that
I
would
can
be
do that.
great. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess the rest of my questions will be for the developer is, so I don't know if Councillor Duncan or Councillor Dobson have any questions. Kind of
Yeah,
covered.
I'll ask just one in regards to the adjacent single family homes there. What is the setback from property to property there?
And that will be It's 65. Approximately 65 feet.
Okay.
Plus the building setback.
Yeah, plus then the building setbacks.
Plus the building setbacks, so
65 feet from property line to property line.
property line to property line, and then the house setback, and then the building setback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the house
And
is,
then the existing 10 Linden Ridge, there's no obstruction of their like existing view from, I guess, predominantly the south side of the building there.
Oh, yeah, from 10 Linden Ridge. No, that actually will be on the green space and the landscape space. I have one question. Can I jump in there, Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So the zoning for this property, the height that they could build if they wanted to is,
It's zoned RMFL, residential large,
Yeah.
and so the maximum height permitted is 150 feet. So that's,
150 feet. And this height of this building is 69 feet, is what I see here.
correct, yes.
69. And then this was zoned, right? This was zoned, I think it was 1998, was it rezoned? And sat empty for a long time. I know, I personally delivered letters to all the residents across the street on the weekend to make them aware of this. And some of them, they knew that it could have that potential, and others knew but didn't like it. And it's, it is a very significant change, to what they've been used to, but that is what it was zoned for, so. Okay, sorry, Councillor Duncan, I jumped in there, but.
That was my next question, is what is the maximum build out of that zoning? So that has been answered. Any other questions for the public service at this time?
No.
Okay, and is our delegation in the meeting room?
They are. So,
All right.
Robin,
What's
we're just
your-
asking you to turn on your microphone and start your camera, and you have up to 10 minutes, up to 5 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll keep this very brief, but thank you for your time today and your consideration. I'm Robin Lee, Precon Builders, and we are looking at purchasing the subject property from the Brightwater Living Group. They are just completing their last phase of their assisted living facility now, and they're looking for someone to develop a 55 plus apartment that would be seen as a really nice complement to the existing assisted living and as well as the Sharon care home next door. So we're really coming together to develop a nice aging in place opportunity for the neighborhoods of Linden Ridge, Linden Woods, White Ridge. Our market research is showing there's a bit of a shortage and a demand for this type of housing in the area.
Great.
Thank you. Any questions for Robin?
Yeah, thank you very much for popping on here, Robin. I really appreciate that. Just a few questions, if you don't mind. So when you say accessible universal design, what's your definition? What are you building for that?
Yeah, what we're seeing, and there's been the CMHC is also encouraging developers to include more accessible and universal suites in these buildings, as again there's a shortage of them overall. So just including aspects that make living independently easier. So Robert touched on the key points there with wider doorways, better turning radius in the washrooms and at the bedside, a couple of features in the kitchens that would include a couple of extra plugs on the island, a lower counter area. In our last few buildings as well, we install the ovens on the wall so that it's easier for people to access and utilize the oven rather than having to bend over so much, and then placing a shelf for the hot plate or pan that's coming out of the stove before transferring it over to the counter. So little things like that just to make independent living, easier for us.
Nice. Can you elaborate a bit to the east on what's going on with the landscaping there? It looks like it looks beautiful. And you've got another to the north by 10 Linden Ridge. Like what's your game plan there?
Well, we want to provide, just a nice common area for residents and residents of the building, residents of Brightwater. If people are walking down the street, we're going to have a nice landscaped area for, walking their dog, a couple of benches. Just the opportunity for people to enjoy the weather when it cooperates. Yeah. It's a really nice, beautiful neighborhood, as we all know. So it's just sort of enhancing and really just continuing the nice walkways and gravel paths that are in place now across the street.
Yeah, it looks great. Like, is that on the south side of the building? Is that black swirl that goes horizontal? Is that a granular pathway there, or what is that?
Yeah, there's a combination of little paths and shrubs and obviously planting trees and a couple of low berms. Just a little bit of variation in the landscaping.
And then I guess one of my two other questions that I have, from what I can tell here, there is only one entrance and exit, and that's off Linden Ridge Drive. Is that accurate?
Well, we're going to utilize both of the existing approaches and entrances that are being utilized by Brightwater. So the existing entrance off Linden Ridge Drive to the east, that's going to be the primary, our primary entrance to our parking lot, which is also the primary entrance for Brightwater. And then there is an approach on the west side of the subject lot that's also utilized by Brightwater, and we'll be accessing our indoor parking off of that approach.
Oh, okay. So the indoor parking that's not underground, it's main level, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the main level parking, the entrance to it is on the west side of the building.
That's correct.
And how many parking stalls are underneath on the main level, I guess?
I believe 42.
42. Okay, so they would enter off of Falcon Ridge through underneath, okay? And then the ones for the outdoor parking lot enter, Falcon Ridge enters to go underneath the building, and Linden Ridge people will, that entrance will be the above ground or the parking lot, outside the parking lot.
That's
okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And just talk about the car share. Like, are you partnering up with a company or are you doing it independent?
We're still mulling that over. We're finding that the trend now is that, with coming up with the company, we usually have to buy the car anyway, so we might just do it ourselves.
Buy the car yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll see. This being geared towards again the 55 plus. We've developed numerous condos and apartments over the years in the area in the Southwest. So we do see that once we downsize from our homes, that we typically are also downsizing to one car, and the car share that we were contemplating here might be a small pickup truck. Just for those larger errands and runs that people like to do, it just because people like to keep busy, and perhaps if they're downsized to the apartment, they still are perhaps keeping their cottage up at the beach or something like that. So,
okay. And then I guess the last question I had is maybe, you could elaborate on your finishing or what the exterior, that's facing the homes. What does the exterior look like? What is it?
Yeah, well, we're going with a sort of earth tone, ephes, stucco, brick. Trying to keep in a similar similar design and color palette as the neighborhood. We're not trying to stick out like a sore thumb. We're trying to blend in with everyone surrounding us.
Yeah, I mean, the Brightwater combination it's nice. It's there. It's subtle. It's not, sticking out too much. So keep tone with that. Okay, so you do have brick kind of on the bottom 2 levels or some sort, it looks like, and then the stucco up higher up, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question around the waste bins that you have placed there, Robin.
Yes.
Okay, so I see that you have 3 bins, and I'm just getting oriented here in the northwest corner of the property.
Yeah, and that's going to be very close, basically behind there's a few bins there for Brightwater as well. So we're trying to keep it all, in one, sort of location where sort of central and away from any property lines.
Okay, and why did you decide not to go with the submersed Moloch garbage bins here?
We decided to do a similar scenario as Brightwater. It'll just make it more efficient for pickup and utilizing the same company and same vehicles to do pickup on the same days.
Okay, and around that, I'm glad you brought it up because that was my next question. Do you plan to go with private pickup or City of Winnipeg contracted pickup?
Well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, we're using more and more private, these days. So we'll review that firstly with the city. Cruise first as our first option, but
I just think it's important that I say this on the record and that everyone's aware that if this is deemed accessible by the City of Winnipeg, you will be subject to paying the City of Winnipeg waste fees, and if you choose to go with the private contractor fees. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
So even if you have those nice gates that enclose it, that need to be opened manually by someone, that you would be subject to that fee.
Oh yeah, we're very familiar with.
So yeah. I think Councillor Lukes, it's important that if we're saying here, and I'm only addressing you on this, Councillor Lukes, because it's your ward, that if a enclosure has gates that need to be manually opened, I would say that does not meet the accessibility for City of Winnipeg waste pickup, and that they should not be subjected to City of Winnipeg waste fees, and that should they choose to go with a private contractor, they not be subjected to City of Winnipeg waste fees. Because I'm not sure how we get into this and solve the issue of people with multifamily buildings getting council approval for these. However, they're not accessible by City of Winnipeg. However, City of Winnipeg will tell them that they owe them for the waste. If you're following me on this.
Yeah, okay, I got you on that. Okay.
It's a significant issue because Mr. Lee, if he chooses to continue to own this building after, will come back to the area of councillor of the day or myself or Councillor Dobson and say, I'm getting dinged for City of Winnipeg waste and I need it picked up 3 times a week, so I have to get private. And then the only way that cost is recovered is through upping people's rents.
No, I'm actually very aware of that. So, and I know many of the development community are also. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions here related to the landscaping. It looks like you've got 12 decent sized trees up front and it looks very nicely landscaped, and you've got multiple shrubs. So that was a concern when I did speak to people, that you would put in trees and you have and it's nicely landscaped. One of the concerns that we always have is construction and staging and all that lovely stuff that comes with a building being constructed. So I guess my questions are, where are you staging all your equipment? How long will this thing take to get built? And when do you start?
Yeah, where this site is, because we've got a nice large parking area, and our plan is that our first construction activities would commence in the spring. And the first things we'll do is bring the services in and gravel the lot. So that we have a nice work surface and a parking area for our construction staff. Construction staff, like anyone, prefer to park as close to their workplace as possible. So we're going to provide the majority of the parking on site during construction, and the construction period is estimated to be about 18 months.
Mm-hmm. And then I believe in the agreement, they're responsible for keeping, I'm speaking to the planners here, the streets swept and clean and all of that. I will say that this site underwent some challenges when Brightwater was building their facilities. And there were some delays. And as you know, it extended the construction process, and now residents have another 2 years of construction, which is not the most exciting thing to see, but it is what it is. But, I know that, I drive up and down Pembina all the time, like tidy, neat, fast, bang, bang, bang. And those apartments are going up, right? And on Barnes, the one that you had done, very efficient. I had no calls, so hopefully I'll have no calls on this one, because pre-con and who you work with is, I don't know, I've never had a problem. So I'm really optimistic. So,
well, thank you. And we try to learn from what we observe around us, and we were familiar with the issues that Brightwater had. And so we've created a design that will absolutely minimize those types of problems, and also to minimize the time of construction.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't think I have any other questions. You said you were going to start in the spring is when you're planning on starting. Because there's a lot of stuff on site from Brightwater right now, though. They're almost finished, I think. They're current.
Yeah, they're almost finished. They're trying to open in September, and then they've got to clean off the site and do some stuff, and then we'll give them time to open and get their landscaping done, and then we still obviously have to go through the building permit process over the winter and be ready for next season.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and answering our questions. I really appreciate it. I don't know, anyone else have any other questions? I don't have any more.
I guess just one last question for you, and I hate to perseverate on this, but the waste pickup, is your intention to have city waste pickup or private waste pickup?
Well, like I said before, our first choice is, if we're paying for city, we try to do city. But we've run into lots of scenarios where it's just easier for us to go private. So we're gonna dive into the city as our first choice at this site. We think that accessibility is it. We've done all our studies, and we know we can meet the requirements of the city pickup. But then we'll see what Brightwater's doing, because it is most efficient if we use the same provider.
Okay. Is the enclosure going to be locked?
Well, that's one of the funny things that we always run into, right? The planning department insists that we have the gates, and the waste people don't want the gates. So the gates get built, and quite often the gates stay open. So once all the city departments agree on what the plan is moving forward, I know we're willing to work with everyone.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to be on the record that please don't come back and say I'm getting double dinged here.
Right.
Yeah, I try not to. I'm very thankful for all the work that we do, and the help that you provide us, and we're going to figure this out and move forward.
Madam Clerk, does this come forward to SPC and P&D?
No, this committee has the decision-making authority for the plan approval.
Okay. Okay, then I will leave it and not make any amendments here, but just wanted to have that on the record.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion and recommend approval of the submitted plans.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that is carried.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move for adjournment?
Move for adjournment.
Counselor Lukes moves adjournment,
Yeah.
special meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. Thank you very much for joining us for this special meeting of the Assiniboia Community Committee. Take care and enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.